Hello friends, welcome aboard the Sleepy Fairy Tale Express. I'm the Red Mermaid. This train is a dream journey to fairy tale land. Have you all got your train tickets? Subscribe and hit the like button to always be able to ride. Close your eyes, prick up your ears, and listen in a comfortable position. Today's story is The Little Match Girl. On a snowy, cold winter morning, the sky is filled with ashen clouds. White snowflakes quietly descend, covering the ground. The snow-covered streets, frozen overnight, have hardened like ice. The streetlights cast a soft glow on the snow, creating a mysterious atmosphere as if it were a scene from a fairy tale. The streets are bustling with people dressed warmly. They wear thick coats, woolen hats, gloves, and scarves, hurrying their steps. Amidst the crowd heading to their destinations, the snow-covered roads are congested with moving vehicles. At the bus stop, people huddle together, waiting for the bus, exhaling visible breaths to keep warm. Laughter and lively conversations fill the faces of the people. With Christmas approaching, the shops are decorated festively. Inside the stores, warm fires burn in the hearths, and through the windows, various Christmas ornaments gleam and sparkle. People have come out to meet friends and family or to go shopping, and Christmas carols echo through the streets. However, in one corner, a completely different scene unfolds. In a bustling street corner stands a small, frail girl. She is wearing an old coat, but it is too thin to block the cold wind. The girl's cheeks are red from the biting wind, and faint puffs of breath escape her lips. She stands there, lonely, trying to sell matches. Her small voice, filled with desperation, rings out but gets drowned in the noise of busy footsteps. The small, frail girl stands alone, trying to sell matches. She looks no more than 120 centimeters tall, and her thin, weak arms and legs are excessively slender. She wears an old, thin coat, but it is too inadequate to shield her small, frail body from the cold wind. The coat's buttons are loose or missing, and the wrist and neck areas are frayed and worn. Her feet are clad in old shoes with holes, exposing her toes to the freezing wind. The girl's face is red from the cold wind, and her nose and ears are even redder. Her eyes are large and round, but within them lies deep sorrow and fatigue. Long eyelashes carry fallen snowflakes, and her brown hair is stiff and frozen from the cold. She holds a basket full of matches with her small hands, gripping the handle so tightly that her fingers have turned red from the cold. Matches, buy some matches. Good matches. Her voice is small but earnest. She looks around, trying to catch the eyes of passers-by, but people ignore her as they hurry by. She shyly smiles and holds out the matches, but people turn their heads and pass by indifferently. Her calls grow weaker, and her voice is filled with the desperation of needing to sell the matches. Despite the freezing weather, the girl stands there shivering in her thin clothes. Her hands are cold, and her fingers feel like they might freeze. The hand holding the basket is so cold it's numb, and her small lips are turning blue. Her coat is barely more than a barrier against dust. The harsh wind slips through its gaps, piercing her frail body. She stands in a corner of the street, continuously calling out for people to buy her matches, but her trembling voice is almost inaudible against the cold wind. The snow keeps falling, piling up around her small feet. Her shoes, worn and with holes, let in the snow, soaking and freezing her feet. After standing for hours since the snow began, her feet are numb, and she can feel the cold seeping in, making her toes freeze. The girl's hair has frozen into tiny icicles in the cold air. Her eyelashes are dusted with snow, looking like they've blossomed with white flowers. Her cheeks, exposed to the biting cold, are flushed red, as is her nose. Her eyes reflect a sad and fearful world. She had to sell matches despite the cold, standing in the snowy streets. With heavy steps, the girl approaches a man, her hope pinned on him. The man, middle-aged, is dressed in a black coat and a warm hat. He carries a briefcase and wears an anxious expression, as if time is running out. The girl, feeling both fear and courage, stands before him and softly speaks, "Matches, buy some matches. Good matches." The man pauses and looks down at the girl. To him, she is nothing but an inconvenience in his busy day. He sighs and frowns. "Sorry, little one, I'm in a hurry." His voice is cold and indifferent. Without offering her any warmth, he quickly resumes his hurried pace. The man's cold rejection makes the girl's heart feel even colder. Watching him walk away, she lets out a deep sigh, a silent echo in the cold winter air. She grips the matches tightly and moves on to another spot. Her steps are heavier, and the snow continues to fall, piling on her small shoulders. The girl looks around again. She sees people laughing and chatting. Through shop windows, she sees warm lights shining. The streets, adorned with festive Christmas decorations, are brimming with joy, but for the girl, it is just a distant world. She gathers her courage once more, thinking that she must sell her matches, and braces herself against the cold. On this freezing winter day, the little girl fervently wishes that her matches could bring warmth to someone's heart. Battling fear and loneliness, she picks up her basket of matches and heads out into the street once more. Her small voice rings out again in the street, "Matches for sale, matches for sale. Warm matches for a cold night." The girl keeps walking and offering her matches to people, but still, no one pays her any attention. The cold grows harsher, biting at her fingers and making them even stiffer. Her eyes, filled with desperate hope, shine with a small flame fighting against the chilling wind. This small flame is the undying light of hope in her heart. As she walks, she sees people hurrying to buy Christmas presents, and through the windows of warm cafes, she notices friends laughing and chatting. These scenes feel so distant and unattainable to her. The girl longs to enter one of those warm places and have a cup of hot tea, but she lacks the money and the means. Despite everything, she does not give up. As evening falls, the streets grow quieter, and the cold becomes even more biting. The sky darkens, and the street lights cast a soft glow on the freshly fallen snow. The bustling sounds of the city gradually fade, and shops close one by one, disappearing into the darkness. Now, only a few passers-by rush through the cold, pulling their collars up against the wind. The girl, still unable to sell a single match, feels lonelier in the darkening evening. Her small body shivers from the cold, and her little hands are frozen stiff. She hugs her thin coat tightly around her and stamps her feet to keep warm, but the cold wind penetrates her thin clothing, chilling her to the bone. Her eyes, filled with tears, follow the twinkling lights in the distance as she looks around. People still on the streets hurry to return to their warm homes. Watching them, she desperately wishes she, too, could go to a warm place, but she has no home to return to. The evening cold grows harsher, reddening her cheeks and ears, and numbing her fingers. She clutches herself for warmth, trying to hold on to the flickering hope in her heart. But even that hope seems to be fading. So cold, the girl mutters to herself without realizing it. Just then, a splendid carriage passes by her. The carriage is adorned with golden decorations and red velvet curtains, gleaming in the snowy street, catching everyone's eye. Its wheels roll heavily through the snow, moving with a graceful rhythm down the street. Two elegant horses, their sleek black coats gleaming, pull the carriage. They wear ornate harnesses, and their breaths form white puffs in the cold air. The coachman, dressed in a thick fur coat, stands tall against the snowstorm. His face is flushed from the cold, and his breath comes out in white clouds. He shouts loudly for people to clear the way. "Move aside! Move aside!" His voice is sharp and harsh, cutting through the icy air. Behind the silk curtains of the carriage windows, the warm glow from inside is faintly visible, feeling incredibly cozy and inviting to the girl. She gazes longingly at the light, wishing she could be inside. But at that moment, the coachman's shout and the cold wind hit her. Startled, the girl falls backward, hitting the cold ground. It feels like slow motion as her body falls, the moment stretching out. When she hits the icy ground, sharp pain spreads through her body. The basket of matches slips from her small hands, flips into the air, and scatters matches across the snow. The girl quickly sits up, looking at the scattered matches. The matches, bright red and yellow against the white snow, stand out starkly. Her fingers are too stiff to move easily, but she desperately starts to gather the matches back into her basket. Her hands, numb with cold, fumble as she picks up each match. The pain in her fingertips is intense, but she grits her teeth and continues to collect the matches. She looks around, wanting to ask for help, but people pass by, too busy to notice her plight. Her fingers are so cold they hardly move, and each time she picks up a match, a sharp pain shoots through her fingertips. Still, she doesn't give up, determined to gather all the matches back into her basket. Sitting on the cold ground, the girl looks at the scattered matches on the snow. Her eyes are filled with despair and worry. The matches shine brightly against the white snow, but her heart feels heavy with the weight of her emotions. Her frozen fingers are numb, and the pain in her fingertips is intense. Ignoring the pain, she starts to pick up the matches one by one. She tries to ignore the pain in her fingers as she gathers the scattered matches into the basket. Though her fingers are too stiff to move properly, she does her best to not lose a single match. The matches, blown by the cold wind, scatter further, and she moves quickly to retrieve them. The pain in her fingertips grows worse, and tears stream down her cold cheeks. She looks around, wanting to ask for help, but everyone is too busy with their own lives to notice her. She reaches out to people desperately, but no one looks her way. Her cries are drowned out by the wind and the sound of footsteps. The girl manages to gather all the matches back into the basket and starts to wander the streets again. Her heart is heavy, and the pain in her fingertips grows worse, but she struggles to keep her hope alive. She walks the cold streets, praying that her matches might bring warmth to someone. The girl's heart feels heavy. Will anyone need my matches on this cold night? She wonders to herself. Hugging the basket of matches close, she walks the cold streets, lost in thought. The matches in the basket are her only hope, her last chance to survive. Her eyes grow heavier, and her body feels numb. She is drawn to the warm lights and happy laughter coming from the houses she passes. Through the windows, she sees families gathered around tables, enjoying meals and talking by the fireplace. Their faces are lit with smiles, and the faint sound of their laughter reaches her ears. These scenes seem like a distant, unattainable dream to her. As she gazes at the warm lights and happy families, she wishes she could be a part of that warmth and happiness. But her reality is the cold wind and the empty streets. She hopes her matches can bring warmth to someone, and once again gathers her courage to offer them to the passers-by. But no one responds, and the streets grow quieter. Her heart grows heavier, and the pain in her fingertips worsens. She feels desperate, knowing she needs to sell the matches to survive the night. The indifference of the people and the biting cold crush her hope. She curls up, trying to think warm thoughts. Her eyes reflect her desperate wish, and a small flame of hope continues to flicker. The girl peers through a window, imagining the warmth of the families gathered inside. Through the distant window, she sees a warm house glowing with Christmas decorations. The window glows with warm light, and inside, a family sits together, opening presents under a Christmas tree, laughing and chatting. She can't take her eyes off the warm scene beyond the window. For a moment, she forgets the pain in her fingertips, longing to be inside that warm house. Tears well up in her eyes, streaming down her cold cheeks. She desperately wishes she could be part of that family, sharing a warm dinner and stories by the fireplace. As she watches the happy family through the window, she recalls her own past Christmases with her mother. She remembers the warmth of their home, the Christmas tree, and her mother's loving embrace. But now, her reality is cold and lonely. She wants to return to those warm memories, but she can't. Gazing at the happy family, she wishes she could be one of them, but the cold wind only makes her feel more isolated. Her hands remain frozen, gripping the basket of matches tightly, but no one wants to buy them. Alone on the cold streets, she clings to the hope that her matches might bring warmth to someone, struggling to keep that hope alive. The girl holds up her matches once more and cries out, "Matches for sale, warm matches for a cold night." Her voice is small, but it carries a desperate earnestness. People hear her cry but continue to hurry past with busy steps. Standing under a streetlight, she is bathed in its dim glow as she offers her matches to the passing crowd. Though her voice grows weaker, the small flame of hope within her remains unextinguished. Desperation drives her as she continues to shout, believing she must sell the matches to survive this bitterly cold night. Her small hands are still frozen, but they grip the matches tightly, holding on to that flicker of hope. She looks at the faces of the passers-by. Some have their faces buried in thick coats, while others walk briskly with warm coffee in hand. They are all busy with their own lives and do not pay attention to the girl's cries. However, she does not give up and continues to shout, "Matches for sale, good matches." Her eyes, filled with desperate hope, sparkle like a small flame fighting against the cold night. She prays that this little flame might warm someone's heart on this freezing winter night. Gathering her courage, the girl huddles her small body and shouts once more. Tears well up in her eyes, but the cold wind quickly freezes them. The night grows deeper, and the cold winter wind becomes even more biting. People gradually return to their homes, leaving the girl completely alone. The streets grow quiet, and the snow continues to fall. With each breath in the frigid air, white puffs of breath form, and the girl's face grows colder and more pained. Standing under the dim light of a street lamp, she is alone. A few passers-by, wrapped in thick coats, walk quickly, hurrying home to their warm fires and loved ones, but the girl has no home to return to. Her small body shivers with cold and hunger, and she wanders the streets without having sold a single match. She hugs her thin coat tightly around her and stamps her feet to try to stay warm, but the increasing cold pierces her to the bone. With no more strength to walk, she finds a spot in a narrow alley and sits down. Snow begins to fall, gently piling up on her head. She hugs her basket of matches and curls up on the cold ground, trembling from the cold and loneliness. Warm lights seep out from behind windows, and somewhere, the smell of delicious food wafts in the air. Peering through a window, she watches a family gathered for a warm meal. The sight of their warmth and happiness allows her to momentarily forget her hunger and cold. How wonderful it would be to have a meal in such a warm house. She whispers to herself. Her eyes, filled with faint hope, also reflect deep sorrow. The girl picks up her matches once more and, with a voice growing fainter, calls out, "Matches for sale, matches for sale." But no one responds, and the street grows ever quieter. She curls up against the growing cold, trying to immerse herself in warm thoughts. She wants to escape her situation, even if only in a small imaginary world. With no strength left to walk, the girl sits down in a corner of a narrow alley. Unlike the main street, the alley is quiet and feels desolate. It feels like a small island, detached from the world's noise and chaos. In this silent space, only the sound of her small breaths and the soft rustling of snowflakes carried by the cold wind can be heard. Snow starts to fall from the sky, piling gently on the girl's head. Snowflakes also gather on her shoulders, knees, and hair, making her look like a tiny snowman. Hugging her basket of matches, she curls up on the cold ground, trembling from the cold and loneliness. The matches in her basket are her last hope, but they are insufficient to keep her warm. Warm lights escape from windows, and somewhere, the smell of delicious food lingers in the air. The aroma intensifies her empty stomach's pain, and deep hunger and loneliness swell within her. She clutches her stomach, tears streaming down her face as she longs for the warm scent. She cups her cold hands, blowing warm breath on them, trying to feel any warmth. Peering through the window, the girl sees families gathered for a warm meal. The house is decorated with a Christmas tree and twinkling lights, creating a cozy and warm atmosphere. Families sit around a long table, sharing delicious food and joyful laughter. Their faces are filled with happiness and love, and the table is laden with various dishes. The fire from the hearth warms the entire room, with the family gathered around it, exchanging words of love. Children open Christmas presents with delight, and parents smile warmly at them. The scene appears incredibly warm and peaceful to the girl. Watching this scene, she clutches her stomach. Her small body shivers from cold and hunger, but the warm scene through the window offers her a brief moment of comfort. She longs to be part of that warm space, sharing a meal with family, and tears stream down her face. It feels like there would be no cold or hunger in that place. But her reality is cold and lonely. She curls up against the cold wind, praying to share in the warmth she sees beyond the window. Her eyes reflect a small flame of hope and the desperate wish to endure the cold night. Once more, she musters her courage and calls out, "Matches for sale." The girl picks up her matches once more and cries out, "Matches for sale, matches for sale, warm matches for a cold night." Her voice, faint in the wind, carries desperate hope and urgency. Her fingers are numb with cold, and her lips turn blue, but she does not give up, standing on the street's edge, trying to sell her matches. The streets are nearly empty now. A few people hurry home, and shops close one by one. The dim streetlights cast a faint glow, making the girl's small figure look even more forlorn. She wraps her thin coat around her and calls out to passers-by in the snowstorm. Her voice weakens, and her body shivers uncontrollably. But she clings to her last hope. Her small hands still hold the matches tightly, and they are her only flicker of hope. She prays that this small flame might warm someone's heart on this freezing winter night. Tears well up in the girl's eyes, quickly freezing in the cold wind. She hopes her cries are not in vain and musters the strength to shout once more, "Matches for sale, good matches." But her voice is swallowed by the wind and is no longer heard. Growing exhausted, she continues to try to sell her matches, refusing to give up. Her body grows colder and colder, and her hands and feet become numb with frost. She curls her small body up, trying to immerse herself in warm thoughts. But the harsh reality only deepens her despair. Holding on to the hope that her matches might bring warmth to someone, she shouts for the last time. The girl, wanting to forget her situation, escapes into a small world of imagination. In the middle of the cold street, she closes her eyes and enters her fantasy. In her imagination, the match flames burn brightly, surrounding her with warmth and light. She lets herself be enveloped by the warmth of the flames, momentarily forgetting the cold and pain of reality. The girl imagines the burning matches, seeing herself enter a warm and cozy space filled with their light. Unlike reality, this space is snug and comforting. She pictures herself sitting in front of a fireplace. The flames dance merrily, and a warm blanket is spread out around her. She imagines herself wrapped in that blanket, holding a cup of hot tea. In her imagination, her family is with her. Her mother, father, and siblings are all gathered around her. They smile and talk with the girl, sharing a warm dinner. The table is laden with delicious food, and beneath the Christmas tree are sparkling presents. The girl smiles as she imagines this happy scene. In this imaginary world, she feels her mother's warm touch. Her mother hugs her tightly, whispering, "My dear child, how cold you must have been. It's all right now, Mommy is here." The girl feels a sense of relief, finding peace in her mother's warm embrace. Her mother's arms feel warmer and safer than anything in the world. But reality is harsh and cold. She finds brief comfort in her imagination, but it doesn't last. The cold wind hits her face, and the numbness in her fingers pulls her back to reality. Holding on to the warm scene in her mind, she picks up her matches once more and cries out, "Matches for sale, matches for sale." Gathering her last bit of strength, the girl picks up her matches and cries out, "Matches for sale, matches for sale." Her voice is weak, but the light of hope within her is still not extinguished. The cold wind continues to blow, and the snow keeps falling, but she does not give up. She stands by the roadside, trying to sell her matches to the passers-by. Her hands have lost all feeling, and her fingers are frozen stiff. Yet, she continues to shout. Her voice grows weaker, and she becomes breathless. Tears flow down her cold cheeks, freezing into tiny ice crystals. She lifts her hand holding the matches and cries out one last time. The streets are almost empty. Only a few people hurry by on their way home, and all the shops are closed. The streetlights cast a dim glow, making her small figure look even more forlorn. She wraps her thin coat around herself and calls out to passers-by in the snowstorm. But no one answers, and her cries are swallowed by the cold wind. In her despair, she fights to hold on to her last hope and continues to cry out, "Matches for sale, good matches." But people do not hear her voice and pass by indifferently. Her heart grows heavier, and the pain in her fingertips worsens. She hopes that her matches might bring warmth to someone and uses the last of her strength to cry out. But her voice is almost inaudible now. Growing exhausted, she can no longer summon the strength to continue. The girl holds onto the matches tightly for the last time, looking up at the sky. Snowflakes descend from the heavens, gently landing on her face. Gazing at the sky, she dreams of warmth amidst the cold night. Her eyes reflect faint hope mixed with deep sorrow. Whispering one last time, "Matches for sale," she looks at her last match. In the cold night air, the girl reflects on her hard day, and her heart grows heavier. She looks at the unsold bundle of matches, longing for her deceased mother's warm embrace. Sitting in the cold alley, tears well up in her eyes, trickling down her cold cheeks. In her tears, she recalls the warm memories with her mother. Her mother always hugged her and told her warm stories. Those stories wrapped her heart in warmth and made her feel safe. She misses her mother's soft voice and warm embrace, recalling those memories in the cold night. "Mom, I miss you," she whispers, cold tears streaming down her cheeks. After her mother passed, she found comfort in her grandmother's embrace. Her grandmother always shared love and wisdom, caring for her. Her grandmother's warm touch and gentle smile were a great comfort to the girl. She misses the old stories her grandmother told and the warmth she felt in her embrace. The times with her grandmother remain her most cherished memories. But now, the girl is left alone, shedding tears as she recalls those warm memories on the cold street. The absence of her mother and grandmother fills her with immense sadness and loneliness. She looks up at the sky with a longing heart, holding on to a faint hope that her mother and grandmother are watching over her. "Mom, Grandma, are you watching over me?" Here, in this cold winter night, left all alone, she whispers, gazing at the sky. In that moment, a warm and peaceful scene with her mother and grandmother fills her heart. She imagines herself being embraced by her mother and grandmother, feeling their warmth once more. The girl soothes her longing heart with this vision, holding on to a small hope beneath the starlight. Believing that her mother and grandmother are watching over her, she finds the strength to endure any cold. Her heart no longer feels lonely, and she finds brief warmth in her memories with her loved ones. The night grows deeper, and the girl trembles more in the cold, huddling in a corner. Sitting against the wall in a narrow, dark alley, her body feels as cold as ice. Her small hands are frozen within the sleeves of her old, thin coat, and her fingers have lost all sensation. The thin clothes do nothing to block the biting wind that pierces her deeply. She looks around, desperately trying to find even a hint of warmth. But all around her are cold walls, the hard ground, and the lonely silence. She closes her eyes, trying to escape from this painful reality for a moment. From far away, she can faintly hear happy laughter and the sounds of a warm home, but they seem too distant. Her body is so cold it's losing all feeling, and her small feet are frozen inside her worn-out shoes. Snow has seeped into the holes in her shoes, making her toes feel as if they're submerged in icy water. She tries to move her feet, but she no longer has the strength. Tears form in her eyes, trickling down her cold cheeks. The girl curls up on the cold ground, searching for any way to keep warm. She looks at the matches she has, wondering if they could give her even a brief moment of warmth. But she hesitates, knowing that if she uses them all, she might have no hope left. She looks at the match in her hand, torn between the desire for a brief warmth and the need to hold on to her last hope. However, the cold becomes more intense, and her body continues to freeze. She looks at her last hope, the matches, wishing that the small flame could warm her. She takes out one match, clutching it tightly, and imagines the warmth it might bring. There's a faint spark of hope left in her heart, but it's growing weaker. Summoning the last of her strength, she prepares to light the match. Her hands are trembling, and her fingers can barely move, but she refuses to give up. Determined to keep her last hope alive, she carefully strikes the match. She stares at the match in her hand, longing to feel warmth, even for a brief moment. The match in her hand feels like a faint spark of hope. Her fingers are so cold they can barely move, but she carefully takes out a match. Her fingers, numb and stiff like wooden sticks, struggle, but she doesn't give up. She focuses on her fingertips, striking the match. "Should I light a match?" she whispers to herself, pulling the match closer to her body to shield it from the wind. Her breath forms a faint mist in the cold air, and her trembling hands carefully move to light the match. Her heart is filled with a desperate wish to feel warmth, even for a moment. Snap! The match ignites, and the sudden bright flame illuminates the girl's face. The small flame shines brightly in the cold darkness, warming her pale face. Her eyes sparkle in the light, and a fleeting smile appears on her face. The match flame wraps around her cold hands, feeling soft and warm like her mother's touch. The girl is grateful for the warmth from the match flame. The small light feels incredibly precious, warming her heart like a spark of hope. She gazes at the match flame, letting the warmth envelop her body and soul. In that moment, she forgets all her pain and cold, finding peace in the warmth of the match flame. The match flame conjures up a warm vision for the girl. In her mind, she sees herself sitting in front of a fireplace, wrapped in a cozy blanket. The fire in the fireplace crackles and dances, and her family gathers around. Her mother holds her close, telling her warm stories. In this vision, the girl smiles happily, basking in the warmth. The match flame soon fades, but the girl cannot forget the brief warmth. As the flame dies, she clutches her hands, trying to hold on to the remaining warmth. However, the match quickly dims, returning her to the cold and dark reality. Where the flame once was, only cold air brushes her fingertips. Watching the flame vanish between her fingers, tears well up in her eyes. She whispers to herself, "Mom, please protect me." Her voice is carried away by the wind, and deep sadness and loneliness fill her heart once again. She recalls the warmth created by the match flame. The moment when the flame blossomed, and the family and fireplace she saw in its light. The brief moment of warmth had melted her body and soul, offering great comfort, even though it was short. She feels the urge to light another match, to feel that warmth again. But she knows the matches are finite. They are her last hope and means of survival. If she uses them all, she will have no way to fend off the cold. She sighs deeply and hesitates. Her hands are still frozen, and her feet have lost all feeling, but she struggles to hold on to the spark of hope within her. She hopes the warmth and visions from each lit match won't disappear. Before lighting another match, she gathers her thoughts. Her eyes still hold a faint glimmer of hope, though it's growing dim. She prays one more time before lighting the match, hoping to keep the spark alive. With her eyes closed, she places the match in her hand against her chest. In a soft, trembling voice from deep within her heart, she whispers, "Mom, Grandma, please protect me. Please." Her voice is weak and trembling, but she refuses to give up on the spark of hope. Drawn by the brief warmth from the match flame, the girl takes out another match. "I hope this one lasts longer," she thinks, striking the match with a small wish. Her hands are still frozen, but the moment she lights the match, she feels a desperate yearning for warmth in her fingertips. Snap! The match ignites brightly once more, revealing an incredible scene. In front of the girl, a magical fireplace appears, radiating a comforting heat. The area around the fireplace is filled with warmth and a cozy ambience. She feels the heat from the fireplace, reaching out her hands to fully enjoy its warmth. Wow, it's really warm. She extends her hands toward the fireplace and the flame, marveling at the warmth. For a moment, she forgets the cold and enjoys sitting in front of the fireplace in the match flame. The fire burns brightly, illuminating her face and enveloping her body in warmth. In that warmth, she forgets all her pain and loneliness, smiling happily. In her imagination, the fireplace feels alive, radiating heat and embracing her. She closes her eyes, recalling the warmth of her mother's and grandmother's hugs. Hope rekindles in her heart, and the small flame becomes a great comfort to her. Snap! The match ignites again, this time revealing a magnificent fireplace. Built with sturdy bricks and stones, it is surrounded by beautiful decorations. Inside the fireplace, bright and warm flames dance, and their heat reaches her completely. In front of the fireplace are a plush chair and a blanket. She sits in the chair, wrapping herself in the blanket and basking in the warmth of the fire. The chair is soft and cozy, and the blanket feels as warm as her mother's embrace. She looks at the flames, feeling their warmth and smiling. Her family gathers around the fireplace. Her mother strokes her hair gently, whispering, "My dear, how cold you must have been." "It's all right now, Mom is here." She feels reassured by her mother's words, enjoying the warmth and happiness. Her grandmother tells her old stories in a soft and warm voice, bringing great comfort to her. She immerses herself in the tales, wrapped in the warmth and love from her grandmother. In that moment, she forgets all her worries and fears. However, the match flame doesn't last long. The flames gradually fade, and the heat from the fireplace slowly disappears. She reaches out, hoping to keep the flame alive, but it eventually dims and vanishes. Along with the fireplace, all the warmth disappears, and she returns to the cold reality. She holds on to the brief warmth, sighing deeply. Remembering the warmth she felt, she whispers, "Mom, please protect me." Her voice fades in the cold air, but there remains a spark of hope in her heart. As the flames of the fireplace gradually diminish, the girl desperately hopes they won't go out. Sitting in front of the fireplace, she tries to savor the warmth a little longer, but the flames continue to fade. With each passing moment, the heat from the fireplace dissipates, and cold reality creeps back into her heart. She extends her hands, hoping to pull the flames closer, but they grow smaller and smaller until even the faintest light disappears. The warm heat from the fireplace is swiftly replaced by cold air, and she returns to her frozen state. Though she tries to hold on to the brief warmth, the merciless cold of reality prevails. As the fireplace vanishes, she feels a profound sense of loss deep in her heart. With the warmth gone, she is again tormented by the biting wind. Hugging her knees and curling up, she tries to escape the cold reality. But around her, there is nothing left, only the cold and quiet darkness enveloping her. Remembering the brief warmth, she sighs deeply. "Mom, please protect me," she whispers, her voice fading into the cold wind. Yet, within her heart, a spark of hope still remains. Believing that this small spark will protect her, she takes out another match. Tears stream down her face as she gazes at the match. Desperately wishing for the small flame to warm her, she gathers her thoughts before lighting it. Her hands still tremble, but she doesn't give up. Determined to keep the spark of hope alive, she carefully lights the match. Without hesitation, she takes out another match. The warmth from the fireplace still lingers in her heart. What will I see this time? She wonders, lighting the match with anticipation. As the match flame ignites, another vision unfolds before her eyes. Snap! The match ignites brightly again, this time revealing an enchanting Christmas tree. The tree stands tall, adorned with magnificent decorations and twinkling lights like stars. At the top of the tree, a large golden star shines, bright as the real stars in the night sky. The branches are covered with colorful ornaments, each intricately crafted and beautiful. Little angel and snowflake decorations glisten in the light, capturing her gaze. Beneath the tree are large gift boxes, wrapped in various colorful papers and tied with big ribbons. The red, blue, gold, and silver wrapping papers shine brightly under the Christmas tree lights, making her feel excited about what might be inside each box. Around the tree, her family gathers, smiling warmly at each other and singing Christmas carols. Her mother approaches, softly saying, "Merry Christmas, my dear. Open your present." She smiles brightly, her heart pounding with excitement as she opens the gift box. Inside, she finds the doll and warm clothes she had always wished for. Overwhelmed with joy, she laughs. The family celebrates Christmas together, enjoying the warm moment. Her father hugs her, saying, "Merry Christmas, my dear daughter." Her grandmother hugs her, saying, "My dear granddaughter, seeing you happy makes me so happy." She feels the warmth and love, shedding tears of joy. The area around the tree is filled with warm light and love. In front of the fireplace are a plush chair and a blanket. She sits by the fireplace, wrapping herself in the blanket and sipping warm tea. The warm liquid flows down her throat, filling her with warmth. Closing her eyes, she enjoys the warm moment. However, the match flame doesn't last long. As she reaches out to touch the tree decorations, the flame goes out. The magical Christmas tree vanishes, bringing her back to the cold winter wind. Although filled with regret and sadness, she holds on to the warm memory in her heart. She reflects on the joy and beauty the Christmas tree brought, thinking, "Even with just one small match, I can dream such beautiful dreams." She decides not to light another match immediately, cherishing the warmth and the fantastic scene. Curling up, she takes a moment of rest under the starlight, holding on to a small hope. Snap! As the match ignites, an enchanting Christmas tree appears within the flame. The tree stands tall, its branches adorned with magnificent decorations and twinkling lights. At the top, a large golden star shines brightly, like a star in the night sky. The branches are adorned with colorful ornaments, each intricately crafted. Little angels and snowflake decorations glitter in the light, capturing her attention. Under the tree are large gift boxes, wrapped in colorful papers and tied with big ribbons. The red, blue, gold, and silver wrapping papers gleam brightly under the tree lights, making her feel a sense of excitement and wonder about what might be inside. Her family gathers around the tree, smiling warmly at each other and singing Christmas carols. Her mother approaches, softly saying, "Merry Christmas, my dear. Open your present." She smiles brightly, her heart pounding with excitement as she opens the gift box. Inside, she finds the doll and warm clothes she had always wished for. Overwhelmed with joy, she laughs. The family celebrates Christmas together, enjoying the warm moment. Her father hugs her, saying, "Merry Christmas, my dear daughter." Her grandmother hugs her, saying, "My dear granddaughter, seeing you happy makes me so happy." She feels the warmth and love, shedding tears of joy. The area around the tree is filled with warm light and love. In front of the fireplace are a plush chair and a blanket. She sits by the fireplace, wrapping herself in the blanket and sipping warm tea. The warm liquid flows down her throat, filling her with warmth. Closing her eyes, she enjoys the warm moment. However, the match flame doesn't last long. As she reaches out to touch the tree decorations, the flame goes out. The magical Christmas tree vanishes, bringing her back to the cold winter wind. Although filled with regret and sadness, she holds on to the warm memory in her heart. She reflects on the joy and beauty the Christmas tree brought, thinking, even with just one small match, I can dream such beautiful dreams. She decides not to light another match immediately, cherishing the warmth and the fantastic scene. Curling up, she takes a moment of rest under the starlight, holding on to a small hope. As she reaches out to touch the Christmas tree decorations, the match flame goes out. The warm light and beauty at her fingertips vanish, and the cold darkness surrounds her once more. She blinks, recalling the fleeting vision of the Christmas tree. The warmth and joy of that moment have now disappeared into the still air. With the match flame gone, she returns to the cold reality. Her hands, briefly warmed by the match's heat, now feel frozen again. Tears form in her eyes, quickly freezing in the cold wind. She feels a deep sense of loneliness and loss, closing her eyes and sighing quietly. She clings to the memory of the brief joy and beauty the Christmas tree brought, trying to hold it in her heart. Though it was a fleeting moment, it became a precious memory for her. She wishes the warm vision would last forever, feeling a sudden urge to light another match. However, reality is harsh and unyielding. She knows there are only a few matches left. Understanding that the matches are her last hope, she hesitates to light one. Within her heart, the desire to see another warm vision conflicts with the fear that once the matches are gone, all hope will vanish. She bows her head, curling up on the cold ground. Her small body shivers, her fingers numb with cold. Clutching her last match tightly, she desperately hopes the small flame will show her another warm vision. She closes her eyes, praying to keep the spark of hope alive deep in her heart. At that moment, a faint light of hope flickers in her heart once more. Mustering all her remaining strength, she takes out the match and carefully lights it. She gazes at the small flame, tears streaming down her face, hoping it will warm her. Holding on to the belief that the small flame will protect her, she prepares to light another match. Recalling the brief joy and beauty the Christmas tree brought, she cherishes the moment deeply in her heart. The golden star, twinkling ornaments, and warm lights of the Christmas tree have become precious memories. These memories provide her with great comfort, helping her momentarily forget the cold. She decides not to light another match, holding on to the joy of the Christmas tree in her heart. Closing her eyes, she revisits the moment. The smiling faces of her family under the twinkling lights, her mother's gentle touch, and her grandmother's soft voice come alive in her mind. This warm vision wraps her heart, helping her forget the cold reality for a while. Curling up, she takes a moment of rest under the starlight, holding on to a small hope. The small flame in her heart remains, warming her despite the cold winter night. Believing that the spark of hope will protect her, she regains her resolve. She knows that the remaining matches are her last hope. Clutching them tightly, she prays that the small flames will once again show her a warm vision. Gazing at the stars, she holds on to a small wish, feeling a faint light of hope in her heart. The girl refrains from lighting another match, cherishing the warmth and fantastic vision she experienced. Curling up under the starlit sky, she holds on to a small hope, taking a moment of rest. The serene night sky is filled with countless stars, twinkling as if they are watching over her. Despite the cold wind blowing, the warm memory of the Christmas tree remains in her heart. She closes her eyes, savoring the warmth of that moment. The twinkling lights of the Christmas tree, her family's radiant smiles, and the gentle touch of her mother and grandmother vividly come to mind. These memories provide her with great comfort, helping her maintain hope despite the cold and loneliness. She wishes that moment could last forever, holding on to the warmth deep in her heart. Opening her eyes, she looks up at the starlit sky. The sky is clear, filled with countless stars. She believes that her mother and grandmother are watching over her from the stars. This belief gives her strength, helping her maintain hope despite the harsh reality. She looks at the remaining matches in her hand. Knowing they are her last hope, she cherishes them. She hopes the small flames will show her another warm vision. Holding the match close to her chest, she makes a small wish deep in her heart. The small flame in her heart continues to burn, warming her despite the cold winter night. She believes that the spark of hope will protect her, regaining her resolve. She closes her eyes, finding peace under the starlight. For that moment, she forgets all her worries and fears, finding happiness in the warm vision. As she gazes at the cold winter night sky, suddenly, a star streaks across the sky, leaving a bright trail. The star shines brilliantly, its long tail sparkling as it cuts through the sky. She watches in awe, captivated by the star's movement. The star's descent across the sky looks beautiful and mystical, like angels coming down. Watching the star, she quietly murmurs, "A life must be fading away." She recalls a story her grandmother once told her. Her grandmother said that when a star falls, a soul ascends to heaven. Remembering this, she wonders if her mother, now a star, is watching over her. The sight of the falling star stirs many thoughts within her. She misses her mother and grandmother. Memories of warm times with her mother and the gentle touch and kind smile of her grandmother come back to her. Filled with longing and sadness, she gazes at the star-falling sky. The sky is clear, filled with countless stars. She looks at them, holding on to the faint hope that her mother and grandmother are watching over her. "Mom, Grandma, are you watching over me?" Here, alone on this cold winter night, she whispers, looking up at the sky. At that moment, a warm and peaceful scene of her mother and grandmother together forms in her heart. In her imagination, she is held in their warm embrace, wanting to feel their warmth once again. She momentarily soothes her longing heart, holding on to a small wish under the starlight. Believing that her mother and grandmother are watching over her gives her the strength to withstand any cold. Her heart no longer feels lonely, and she finds warmth in the memories of her loved ones. Looking at the star-falling sky, she whispers to herself, "Mom, Grandma, please protect me. I miss you so much." Her voice is carried away by the cold wind, and a warm spark ignites deep within her heart. The girl was suddenly reminded of the stories her grandmother used to tell. Gazing at the cold night sky, she recalled those warm tales. Her grandmother always spoke in a gentle voice, especially when she said that a falling star signified a soul ascending to heaven. This story was deeply etched in the girl's heart. Her grandmother's stories always provided great comfort. She would often say that every time a star fell, making a wish would make it come true. Remembering this, the girl always looked at the stars and made wishes. In her grandmother's stories, stars were not just small lights in the sky, but symbols of hope and wishes. Looking up at the sky, she saw a star falling. It shone brightly, trailing across the sky. Watching it, she remembered her grandmother's story, thinking about how a falling star meant a soul was ascending to heaven. She wondered if her mother, now a star, was watching over her. "Is my mom a star watching over me?" she whispered to herself, gazing at the stars. At that moment, she recalled her mother's warm touch and gentle smile. Her mother always held her close and told her warm stories. She missed the warmth and love she felt in her mother's embrace, looking at the stars. Her grandmother's stories were a source of great comfort and hope. She always gave her the wisdom and courage to overcome difficult moments. Remembering her grandmother's stories, she sought hope in them. They were like a small spark that helped her withstand the cold reality. Thinking about her grandmother's words, she believed her mother, now a star, might be watching over her. Holding on to this belief, she gained the strength to endure any cold and loneliness. Closing her eyes, she made a small wish deep in her heart. Under the starlight, she found peace, feeling the warmth her grandmother's stories brought. Under the starlit sky, she looked up and felt an intense longing for her mother and grandmother. Her mother always held her warmly, offering love and comfort. She remembered her mother's gentle touch and warm voice, feeling the pang of longing. Her mother's embrace was the warmest and safest place in the world, where she always felt peace and happiness. After her mother passed away, she found solace in her grandmother's embrace. Her grandmother always held her close, sharing wisdom and love. Her grandmother's warm smile and gentle touch were a great comfort to her. She missed the old stories her grandmother told and the warmth she felt in her embrace. The time spent with her grandmother was the most precious memory for her. Thinking about the love and warmth her mother and grandmother gave her, she felt a deep longing in her heart. Their beloved faces appeared before her eyes. Closing her eyes, she thought of them, wishing to feel their warmth once more. Tears streamed down her face as she longed for their warm touch on this cold winter night. "Mom, Grandma, are you watching over me?" she murmured quietly, looking at the sky. Holding on to the belief that her mother and grandmother were watching over her from the heavens, she gained the strength to endure any cold. The spark of hope still burned in her heart, wrapping her in warmth. Under the starlight, she remembered her mother and grandmother, engraving those warm memories in her heart. She believed that their love and warmth would protect her. With this belief, she strove not to lose hope even in the cold reality. Looking up at the sky, she thought of her mother and grandmother watching over her. She wiped away her tears, holding on to a small wish under the starlight. That wish was like a small spark burning deep within her heart. Holding on to the belief that this small spark would protect her, she strengthened her resolve once again. The girl closed her eyes and imagined herself in the warm embrace of her mother and grandmother. In her imagination, they still loved and watched over her. She visualized their faces, recalling their smiles. The love and warmth in their eyes were evident. In her imagination, the girl found herself in a cozy house. The fireplace was burning brightly, and a soft carpet and plush sofa were in front of it. Christmas decorations glittered on the walls, filling the room with a warm glow. The girl spent time with her mother and grandmother, smiling happily. Her mother held her hand, speaking in a gentle voice. "My dear, how cold you must have been. But it's all right now. Mom is here." Her mother's voice was a great comfort. The girl felt her mother's touch, and her heart melted with warmth. Her mother's embrace was still warm and safe. She relished the warmth she felt in her mother's arms, closing her eyes and savoring the moment. Her grandmother approached, gently stroking the girl's hair. "My beloved granddaughter, don't shiver in the cold. Everything is all right now." Her grandmother's voice brought immense comfort, warming the girl deeply. She smiled happily, feeling the warmth in her grandmother's embrace. Her grandmother's stories always gave her great comfort and courage. In her imagination, the girl spent happy moments with her mother and grandmother. They enveloped her with love and comfort. She engraved those warm moments deeply in her heart, temporarily forgetting the cold reality. A spark of hope reignited in her heart, and that small flame kept her warm. The girl basked in the love of her mother and grandmother in her imagination, experiencing fleeting happiness. In that moment, she forgot all her worries and fears, finding peace in the warm fantasy. The spark of hope remained in her heart, offering great comfort and courage, wrapping her in warmth. The girl kept the warmth she felt in her imagination in her heart. That imagination was vivid, almost real, and it provided her great comfort. Now, even in the cold reality, she held on to a small wish, believing that it would protect her. She took out another match, gazing at the small flame as she made a wish. Closing her eyes, she made a heartfelt wish. "Please, let someone help me. Let me find a warm home and the embrace of a family." Her wish seemed to disappear into the cold air, but she believed it would come true. As she lit the match, she cherished the last hope given to her. The match flame illuminated her face brightly. That light brought her warmth and hope. She looked at the flame, believing her small wish would come true. That belief gave her immense strength. The match flame burned brightly, planting warm hope in her heart. To keep that spark alive, she began to light her remaining matches one by one. The girl found temporary peace in the warmth and hope the match flames provided, momentarily forgetting the cold reality. In her heart, the warm images of her mother and grandmother surfaced. They had always been a source of great strength for her, and she believed they were still watching over her from the sky. Remembering their love and warmth, she thought it would protect her. Amid the cold winter night, she gazed at the small match flames, recalling her mother and grandmother in the light. Feeling their love, she found warmth and hope deep within her heart. With that hope, she gained the strength to endure the cold reality without despair. She closed her eyes and made a small wish. "Mom, Grandma, please help me get through this cold night." That wish became a spark of hope in her heart, burning brightly despite the cold wind. She kept that spark alive, believing her wish would come true. To keep the spark of hope alive, the girl takes out another match and lights it. Her hands are still cold and trembling, but her desperate desire to feel the warmth of the match flame drives her. As the match ignites, a soft light bathes her face. She finds warmth and hope in that small flame. While the match burns, the girl once again slips into a world of imagination. This time, a beautiful garden unfolds before her. The garden is filled with dazzling flowers and soft grass underfoot. The sunlight warmly shines down, and a gentle breeze blows. The girl walks through the garden, inhaling the scent of flowers and listening to the chirping of birds, smiling happily. In the center of the garden is a large fountain. Clear water gushes up from the fountain, surrounded by flowers of various colors blooming beautifully. The girl sits by the fountain, watching the sunlight reflect off the droplets, making them sparkle. The sight is as beautiful as a dream. For that moment, she forgets all her worries in the cold, basking in happiness. All the people the girl loves are gathered in the garden. Her mother and grandmother wave at her, smiling. Her mother greets her with a warm smile, and her grandmother gently strokes her hair. "My dear girl, come here and be happy." Her mother's voice is a great comfort. Her grandmother hugs her, whispering, "This is the place you've always dreamed of." The girl, embraced by their love, sheds happy tears. She wishes the moment could last forever, feeling reassured in her mother and grandmother's arms. That warm moment provides great comfort, planting warmth deep in her heart. But the match flame doesn't last long. The flame gradually diminishes, and the garden in her imagination starts to fade. The water in the fountain stops, the flowers wither, and the warm light of the garden vanishes into the darkness. The girl reaches out, hoping the moment won't end, but the flame eventually dies out. Along with the garden, all the warmth disappears, and she is back in the cold reality. She keeps the brief moment of warmth in her heart, sighing deeply once more. Remembering the warmth she felt, she whispers, "Mom, Grandma, please watch over me." Her voice fades into the cold air, but the spark of hope remains in her heart. As the match flame flickers, the girl sees her grandmother's image appear before her. Smiling gently, her grandmother reaches out to her. The warmth in her grandmother's eyes and smile bring great comfort to the girl. To her, her grandmother looks like an angel. The girl gazes at her grandmother's image, feeling a deep sense of reassurance. Her grandmother slowly approaches, gently taking the girl's hand. "My dear granddaughter, how cold you must have been." "It's all right now, Grandma is here." Her grandmother's voice is warm and soft, wrapping the girl's heart in warmth. The girl holds her grandmother's hand tightly, feeling tears well up from the warmth. The girl embraces her grandmother, feeling the warmth. Her grandmother's embrace is as soft and safe as her mother's. Her grandmother holds her gently, stroking her hair with a warm touch. "My dear, forget all your worries and stay with Grandma." The girl's heart feels at ease with her grandmother's words. In her grandmother's warm embrace, the girl feels a sense of peace. Her grandmother's arms are as cozy as a blanket, wrapping the girl warmly and making her forget the cold night air. She buries her face in her grandmother's arms, feeling the warmth envelop her body, and closes her eyes. Her grandmother strokes her hair gently, telling her a story filled with love. Once upon a time, her grandmother begins, there was a small village filled with people brimming with love and hope. They helped each other, always staying together, sharing warmth even on the coldest winter nights. Her grandmother's voice is soft and calm, soothing the girl's heart. The story becomes a great comfort, making the girl feel as though she is in that warm village. Her grandmother shares many stories, all centered around hope, love, and courage. These stories have always been a source of strength for the girl, and they still are. As she listens, the girl feels warmth and peace deep within her heart. Her grandmother tells her, "My dear, you are always loved. You are never alone." Listening to her grandmother, the girl sheds tears, not of sadness, but of warmth and comfort. In her grandmother's arms, she forgets all her fears and pain, finding momentary peace. Her grandmother gently wipes away her tears, saying, "My beloved granddaughter, forget all your worries and rest. Grandma will always be by your side." In her grandmother's embrace, the girl feels a deep sense of reassurance, with a spark of hope reigniting in her heart. Her grandmother's love and warmth provide great comfort, allowing her to feel peaceful. Listening to her grandmother's stories, she finds peace deep within her heart. In her grandmother's arms, she forgets all her worries and fears, savoring the moment. While with her grandmother, the girl forgets the cold reality and feels a deep sense of peace. Her grandmother's warm touch and gentle voice provide immense comfort, making her feel at ease. Her grandmother holds her softly, whispering, "My dear granddaughter, you will always be with Grandma. You are never alone." Her grandmother's words bring great solace. The girl closes her eyes in her grandmother's embrace, savoring the moment and forgetting all her worries and fears. Her grandmother continues to gently stroke her hair, sharing warm stories. Once upon a time, there was a village filled with people with warm hearts like ours. The villagers cherished and loved each other, always sharing happiness together. Immersed in her grandmother's story, the girl imagines the warm village. In this village, everyone helps each other, sharing warm hearts. There is no cold or loneliness, and everyone lives happily. The girl imagines herself in that village, feeling warmth deep within her heart. Listening to her grandmother's story, the girl hopes to live in such a warm village. In her grandmother's arms, she forgets all pain and loneliness, finding peace in the warm story. Her grandmother gently holds her, saying, "My dear, forget all your worries and rest. Grandma will always be by your side." The girl feels a deep sense of reassurance in her grandmother's arms, with the spark of hope reigniting in her heart. Her grandmother's love and warmth provide great comfort, and she feels peaceful in that warmth. Listening to her grandmother's stories, she finds peace deep within her heart. In her grandmother's arms, she forgets all worries and fears, savoring the moment. In her grandmother's arms, the girl dreams a warm dream. She feels wrapped in a soft, cozy blanket, like floating on a cloud. In her dream, the girl returns to a warm home. The home has a cozy living room with large windows letting in bright sunlight, and a soft carpet on the floor. The fireplace is alight, with flames dancing and filling the room with warm light and heat. The girl sits in the living room with her family. Her mother gently strokes her hair, smiling warmly. Her father hands her a cup of warm tea, saying, "Drink this, my dear, and feel warm." The girl takes a sip, feeling the warmth seep deep into her body. Her grandmother sits nearby, smiling at her with warm eyes. "My dear granddaughter, Grandma is always watching over you." Her grandmother's words are a great comfort. The girl holds her grandmother's hand tightly, feeling love and security in that warm touch. In her dream, the girl smiles happily. She wishes this moment with her family could last forever. She spends joyful moments singing, laughing, and chatting with her mother, father, and grandmother. Their laughter fills her heart like music. In her dream, the girl sits by the fireplace, watching the warm flames. The fire provides great comfort, helping her forget all worries and fears. She envisions her mother and grandmother in the flames, feeling their love. She wishes the moment would last forever, closing her eyes and engraving the warmth deep in her heart. The dream is so warm and peaceful that it makes her forget the cold wind and darkness of reality. In that dream, she enjoys happiness with her loved ones. She forgets all pain and loneliness, sinking into warm love and happiness. Her face beams with a smile as she peacefully falls asleep. The next morning, the cold winter sun slowly rises, beginning to brighten the dark streets. Snow covers the ground in a pristine white blanket, and the morning sunlight sparkles on the fresh snow. People wake up to start their day, stepping out into the streets, and shops begin to open one by one. The streets gradually fill with the bustle of people, bringing life back to the town. In one corner, however, people stop in their tracks, whispering as they look at something. Curious onlookers gather and discover the girl lying in the snow. She appears to be asleep in the snow. Her small body is curled up on the cold ground, and her thin clothes are soaked with the snow that fell throughout the night. As people approach, they are startled to see a peaceful smile on the girl's face. There is no sign of pain or fear, just the calmness of someone having a pleasant dream. In her hand, she still holds the burned-out matches, as if clinging to the warmth and hope they provided during the cold night. The onlookers feel a deep sense of sorrow and regret. They imagine how cold and hard her night must have been, and they blame themselves for not helping her. A woman, with tears streaming down her face, says, "Poor child, she must have suffered so much. Others share in the grief, pained by the realization that they couldn't do anything to help her. Although the girl ended her life in the harsh reality of the cold, her peaceful smile suggests she was dreaming a warm dream in her final moments. The people hope that her last moments were filled with peace and happiness as they gently wrap her small body. The sight of the girl's small body lying on the cold ground evokes deep sorrow among the onlookers. Buried in the snow, her face still bears a serene smile. Her thin clothes are frozen, soaked by the snow, and her hand clutches the burned-out matches. The matches symbolize her unyielding hope even in the face of harsh reality. A woman approaches the girl, gently stroking her face as she cries. Poor thing, how cold she must have been. Her voice trembles, and those around her are enveloped in deep sadness. The people look at the girl with heavy hearts, imagining the lonely night she endured. People gather around, sharing silent grief. Some think of what they could have done to help her, regretting their inaction. They begin to cover the girl with warm blankets, though they know it can no longer provide her warmth. The girl's smile indicates she was dreaming happily in her final moments. The onlookers find some comfort in believing she was with her loved ones in her dreams. They offer short prayers, hoping her last moments were peaceful and happy. Passers-by feel deep sorrow and regret as they see the girl. They look at her cold face, still bearing a peaceful smile, and wonder what dreams she might have had in her final moments. Her small body lies in the snow, but her hand holding the matches shows her strong will to hold on to hope until the end. People bow their heads in silent mourning. A man, unable to hold back his tears, says, "We could have done more for her." Others agree, feeling guilty for not helping her. They are overwhelmed with a sense of failure for not being able to do anything for the girl. Some remove their coats, covering her body, hoping she was warm in her last moments. A woman holds the girl's hand, whispering, "I'm so sorry, so sorry." Tears stream down her face. Others surround the girl, offering silent prayers for her peaceful passing. People share the girl's story, talking about her bravery and unyielding hope. They are deeply moved by her determination to sell matches and hold on to hope until the end. Her story teaches them a valuable lesson, reminding them to cherish and care for each other more. The onlookers breathe warmth onto the girl's cold hands, remembering her hope and courage until her last breath. They pray for her peaceful and happy final moments, with her story deeply imprinted in their hearts. The girl's last night was cold and lonely. The streets grew darker, and the biting wind became even harsher. Clutching her thin clothes tightly around her body, the girl huddled in a small alleyway. Her body grew colder by the minute, and her hands and feet felt as if they were freezing. Yet, she did not lose hope and continued to hold on, determined to sell her matches. She stared at the matches in her hand, imagining the warmth their small flames could bring her. Despite her fingers being nearly too frozen to move, she mustered all her remaining strength to strike a match. As the match flared to life, it illuminated her face, and for a moment, she felt a fleeting warmth. In the flame, she envisioned her mother and grandmother. Their tender touches and warm smiles enveloped her heart. She found solace in those warm memories, filling her with hope and love. For that brief moment, she forgot her pain and loneliness and dreamt of happier times. Though the match soon burned out, she held on to the warmth it had given her. Even after the flame had died, she clung to the comforting memories it had sparked. Curled up on the cold ground, she found peace in the love of her mother and grandmother. Until the very end, she held on to hope, finding peace within it. The girl embarked on a journey beyond the cold reality, entering a warm and joyous dream. In her dream, she found herself in a beautiful world surrounded by loved ones. It was a place of eternal spring, where the sky was clear and blue, and flowers bloomed in abundance. Birds sang joyfully, and butterflies danced in vibrant colors. She ran freely through the picturesque landscape, laughter bursting from her lips. Under the bright sunlight, she met her mother and grandmother. Her mother greeted her with a warm smile, and her grandmother embraced her with gentle hands. "My dear girl, don't worry anymore. Here, you will always be happy." Her mother's voice was soothing and warm, bringing comfort to the girl's heart. They walked hand in hand through the lovely fields, past fragrant flower beds, and into a forest with a clear stream flowing through it. In the forest, small animals greeted her cheerfully. Rabbits, squirrels, and deer surrounded her, eager to play. She played joyfully with them, experiencing pure happiness. In the heart of the forest stood a small cabin. It was the warm and cozy home she had always dreamt of. Inside, a bright fire blazed in the fireplace, and soft sofas and plush blankets awaited her. She spent time there with her mother and grandmother, sipping warm tea and sharing loving words. She wished to hold on to this moment forever. In this dream, she found eternal peace and happiness. No longer did she suffer from cold and loneliness. Her heart was filled with only love and peace. She would live forever in the warm embrace of her loved ones, finding joy and peace in their company. The girl's story is one of hope and perseverance on a cold winter night, illuminated by the small flames of her matches. Through the tiny sparks, she found warmth and love, never giving up hope until the end. Although she was found on the cold ground with a serene smile on her face, within her, there was an everlasting flame of hope and love. People are deeply moved by her story. They remember her bravery, hope, and love, resolving to be kinder and warmer to one another. The girl's small flames did not just light the dark, they also lit up the hearts of many. Her story spreads in various ways. Some write about her, and others paint her. Children hear her tale and imagine the miracles a single match can create. Adults recall her courage and hope, reflecting on the lessons her story imparts. The girl's story becomes a symbol of hope and courage. Like her small flames that never extinguished in the cold night, her story provides eternal strength to people. Though she is no longer in this world, her tale lives on in the hearts of many. Her story reminds people to love one another and spread hope. They remember the miracle her tiny flames created and strive to be bearers of such hope themselves. Passed down through generations, her story becomes a beautiful testament to the impact of a small light. Her tale is more than just a story of a cold winter night. It is a story of love, hope, and courage. With a single match, she created a significant change, leaving a lasting light in the hearts of people. Her story inspires others to love more and work towards a better world. The girl's story will forever live on in people's hearts. It will always be remembered, and her small light will never be forgotten. Her story provides great comfort and courage to all who face the cold nights with unyielding hope. Her courage and hope will eternally shine in the hearts of all.